It's tough to think about even when it comes to adults, but what kind of hospice care is available for children? I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Local Edition. With me this hour is Gail Inderwees. She is the founder and executive director of Keystone Hospice. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Jill, for having me here to talk about this very important but very sensitive issue.
And it really is just that. Talk to us a little bit about the task force that you were recently a part of and what you actually found was happening here in Pennsylvania when it comes to kids and palliative or hospice care.
Absolutely. In Pennsylvania, over 2,000 children die a year, and many of them do not receive the important care that they may need in terms of palliative care or hospice care for those children where life treatments for extending life may or may not have the value anymore. And so Secretary Estelle Richmond basically said, let's put together a task force and put a few of us together. And we came together and started talking about what are the issues. On January 12th, 2008, we saw over 200 people in the room, and many of them were parents, many of them damaged, many of them hurt. Why? Because they didn't even know that they had an option for hospice, or maybe they had an experience with hospice because the provider did not understand how to take care of children, or clearly the child may have died in the hospital and had no option given to them at all. And from that, we met into different groups and came up with a recommendation for the state of Pennsylvania because we felt that children, as well as the parents and the siblings, needed to be honored as a family and really look at how can we deal with family-focused care at a time that the unthinkable you had to deal with.
So in developing these recommendations as you move forward in trying to do what's best for children across Pennsylvania and really across the country as parents have to deal with these difficult of life decisions for a family, what are some of these recommendations and how can they be implemented?
Well, I think, right now with the budget concerns that we have, some of the recommendations that I think people would want may not be as practical. However, there are things we can do immediately in terms of setting up an office in, Department of Public Welfare that would really begin to represent the needs of these children and explore this issue further. Whether or not we need to have some regulations put into place, some legislation, those things are need further dialogue. Also, I did recommend a coalition, even if it's a couple of coalitions or advisory groups that people can go to. If you had a child and you're a parent, where do you go to get proper information? And the problem is there's a lot of misinformation, even within our task force. I mean, we met almost 2 years or 18 months, and last week I read about there's no pediatric hospices in Pennsylvania. Now, as a provider, I've been taking care of kids for 15 years. I think that parents need to be made aware that there are choices. I also think that from the standpoint of the insurance carrier that we need to be looking at, there shouldn't be an either or. You as a parent, I don't know if you have children, but not personal, but if you were faced with that tragic episode in your life where your child may have a life-threatening illness that may not be cured, what are your options and who do you go to that's going to give you that information to know what is the best choice for not just your child, but who's dealing with the siblings? Oftentimes we're being referred children where maybe there's only days or hours left, and that's unfortunate because it doesn't give the hospice an opportunity to really work with the children that are in that home and their loss. And being someone who has personally lost a sibling and 40 years later, I still feel the pain as if it was yesterday. And many people I've met, that have lost siblings, no one's ever addressed what's going on with them. So we need to begin to make those changes and be aware. And I think awareness is the first step.
So we just have a minute left, but the idea is better communication with the entire family, with providers, and giving parents access to the information they may need in order to make more informed decisions.
Correct. And also reform with different carriers, because some insurance carriers will cover it and allow for that. The parents shouldn't have to choose between hospice and palliative care, or maybe some life-sustaining treatments. And a hospice provider alone cannot afford, for example, I have a child right now, it's about 20 grand. They're only going to pay me $3. That carrier needs to be said. They need to play their part to support this mission.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gail.
Thank you.
A difficult topic, but some important information for parents in a difficult situation.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Gail Inderwees. I'm Jill Horner for Comcast Local Edition.